They were early, I'm on time. Well, it's great to be here in Potrero Hill, somewhat dog-patch neighborhood of San Francisco at bottom of the hill, one of the iconic nightlife venues in San Francisco, celebrating 30 years in business. This is absolutely extraordinary for a nightlife venue. When I think about all the places I went to growing up, the One Up, the Glass Cat, and all these other venues, they're not even open anymore. And so growing up in San Francisco, live music, entertainment, events happening in the day and events happening in places like bottom of the hill were just a part of our culture. It's where so many people got their start. And when you think about it, can you imagine back in the day if you had an opportunity to come to bottom of the hill and actually see Santana perform? Those kinds of iconic artists performed or got their start in places like this. And when I think about the fact that this pandemic, we have had to all sacrifice. And we've had to sacrifice because we've not been able to not only be around one another, but we weren't able to enjoy live music. From performing artists, those who DJ, those who entertain, play musical instruments, those who sing, it was very, very hard. And can you imagine it being hard on us not being able to see it, but really hard on the artists who weren't getting paid, hard on the venues who weren't making money and had to lay off staff? It was a tough almost 2 years that we've experienced this pandemic, and although we're in a much, much better place, we still know that many of these venues continue to have challenges. So in San Francisco, what we've been able to do, which I'm very proud of, is our entertainment fund, which I work with Supervisor Haney to establish. We actually invested over $3 million to help nightlife businesses, and I want to thank a lot of the folks here from the Entertainment Commission especially for pushing this and making sure that we carve out resources specifically for nightlife and entertainment venues in San Francisco who we know were struggling. Our jams permit, providing opportunities for restaurants and places that normally don't have live entertainment to have live entertainment for their customers, especially with all the new parklets and open space and the outdoor dining. San Franciscans know how to adapt. It was challenging, but we adapted. We opened up a lot of great open spaces and provided opportunities for artists. In addition to that, waiving over $15 million in city fees for our venues like Bottom of the Hill and other places because, again, they had no revenue coming in. And we know that there are a lot of state and federal programs in our Office of Economic and Workforce Development. They have been working hard to make sure that everyone who qualifies for any of those resources, that we're helping them through the application process so that we make sure that no money is left on the table. Because what we don't want is to see more businesses close in San Francisco. Before this pandemic, it was already challenging, and since this pandemic, we know it has been extremely brutal. And that's why having resources and programs and things like what we're announcing today are so important. And everyone is probably wondering, why is the city attorney at a press conference? Well, the city attorney just became our city attorney, and normally you probably won't see a city attorney at a press conference on a regular basis. But former Assembly member David Chiu did so much in Sacramento around resources, around legislation, and many of those things we're finally starting to feel, in some cases, the fruits of his labor. And in fact, today we're announcing SF Live, a $2.5 million investment from the state thanks to our city attorney, former Assembly member David Chiu, that will invest in entertainment venues and plazas and parks and open space all over San Francisco to support not just paying our artists, our local artists to perform, but also the production cost and all of the city permit fees and all the things that go into setting up these venues to entertain you cost a lot of money. And we want to make sure that we are supporting this industry, that we're keeping nightlife and entertainment alive in San Francisco, that we're all just really, when you think about it, the city starts to reopen, and when it starts to reopen and all of a sudden you hear music, there's something about that that makes you smile. all of a sudden you see someone dancing in the streets, even though I don't want you to do that because we don't want anybody getting hit by any cars or anything, but it's something about seeing people out in the public performing and entertaining the public, the Shakespeare's in the parks, and all the great things that we know make San Francisco such a great place and a welcoming place, not just for the people who live here, but the people who also visit here. I remember one of my first concerts as a kid. It was at the Fillmore Auditorium on Fillmore and Gary, and Ice Cube was performing. Now, I'll be honest, I snuck in. I didn't have any money to buy a ticket. And I was probably underage at the time because I was still in junior high. But the fact is, it was like nothing I ever seen before, like having someone live on stage perform, going to your first concert and having a good time and listening to music and feeling good and everyone feeling good and everyone singing the words. There's just nothing like that feeling. It brings people together. It is a part of the fabric of what makes San Francisco such a wonderful city. It's not just about our economy. It's about our health and well-being. Because entertainment, music, fun, nightlife is the heartbeat of why San Francisco is so special. So I'm grateful to be here today, and at this time, I'd like to introduce City Attorney David Chiu, who is really the champion of this program and the reason why we're here today.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your leadership. And do we have any fans of live music here? All right. So thank you, Madam Mayor, for reminding me and all of us that while I am the city attorney, I'm not here to talk about any cases. I am here really as a former assembly member who has been a bit obsessed by live music. I've been asked by a couple of folks this morning how I got involved in this, and I will say, it started for me when I was in junior high school, and I wrote my first paper on the festival known as Woodstock. Some of you may know that I am a musician in a past life. I used to play the violin, the cello, but in particular, the violin. And the violin is actually what got me through high school and college. It's what allowed me to make some pocket money playing in pit orchestras and in weddings. And some of you may know that I carry that on here in San Francisco. If you Google, apparently, David Chiu and electric violin, I might have been known to have played once or twice on the stage of the Red Devil Lounge in a past life. But let's fast forward. When I first moved to San Francisco, I fell in love with the music scene, the live music scene here in our city. It is part of what makes our city great. And it's not just about the music and the arts and the culture, but it's about what this scene means for our city when it comes to our economic vitality, when it comes to attracting tourists and the rest of the world that wants to come here and have a good time and enjoy the scene that we have. And the men and women behind me have been responsible for that scene, represent literally thousands of folks who are part of what makes San Francisco great. And we're here in part because the last couple years of pandemic and recession have been catastrophic to this world, to this community. And so a few years ago, when a number of folks, when Casey from the San Francisco Venue Coalition, when some of our small business commissioners, I know when Ben Blyman and Sharky Laguana and others came, we also, when Lynn, who is the co-owner of this amazing establishment, representing the Independent Venue Association, they came to us and said, what more can the state do to assist this? That was when Mayor Breed and her OEWD team came and said, hey, Chiu, can you help us figure out how to get some state support for this struggling industry that needs to continue? And that is where this idea for SF Live was born. What we're talking about is being able to support outdoor performances in and around these incredible live music venues to really remind folks of the magic of music and to ensure that we are keeping folks employed and bringing people back to these incredible establishments like the one that we are in front of right now, which Rolling Stone said is one of the very best live music venues in the United States. And so I'm just so delighted to have an opportunity to work with everyone here. I'm looking forward to coming to all these performances. And I will tell you this, that my 5-year-old son just took his first tap dancing class on Saturday. He moves when he hears music. My hope is, as the mayor said, he won't be caught dancing on the streets, but he likely will be found dancing in front of these venues when we get these performances going. And because of that, I'm just so grateful to all the work by everyone here to make this happen. So with that, I want to invite up someone who's going to make sure that it all happens. The woman who is now the new head of OEWD, building on the good work of our former head, Joaquin Torres. It's my pleasure to bring up Kate Sophis. Kate, take it away.
Well, it seems we all have a personal story about music and the arts, so I'll share mine. I'm the daughter of two professional musicians. From day one until the day they passed a few years ago, 40 plus years each of them, in classical music. And for me, that's really informed so much of what I have done in my life, in my professional life, because I remember how much they both struggled economically to make things work. And as I carried that forward in my life, in my previous incarnation before coming to the city at SF Made, which is about makers and artisans and helping them grow and sustain themselves here in the city, to now in my role here at OEWD, a lot of what drives me is wanting to make sure that musicians and artists and performers and really the cultural trust of our city have a way to make it for themselves, for their families, and to earn a decent, respectable, life-sustaining living. So from that, and you look at, well, what is the infrastructure you need to make that happen? So there are the musicians themselves, our artists. There are these cherished venues. When I came here to San Francisco 30 plus years ago, I actually was amazed at the new wave and the punk scene, and that was what I was personally into. And so some of the clubs I started at were more about electronica and just this whole mashup of what now I think has really flourished into live music and DJ culture and EDM and house and hip hop. We have it all here, but it's precious and it needs tending like a flower or multiple flowers in a garden. So when I look at something like this investment, thank you, some former Assembly Member Chiu and my team, Ben, Laurel, for helping really bring this to a culmination. This is tilling the soil in which these wonderful, precious jewels of flowers will grow here in this city. At the highest level of economic recovery, this is also, I believe, the way that we get our city back. We get to reimagine and reinfuse San Francisco with what makes us special, what makes us only here in San Francisco. And I fully believe that our arts and music and cultural assets need to lead the economic recovery front and center. They are the reason people move here. They are the reason people are starting to return back to their offices in downtown, and they are certainly the reason why our visitors, international and domestic, are going to continue to come back here to San Francisco. So with that, enough of us government folks. Let's hear from someone who actually knows how to do this. Please. Lynn Schwartz and partners.
And partners. Wow, we feel really supported. Oh my gosh, I need notes. I'm not good at this. So for our venue, Bottom of the Hill, we were closed for 17 silent months. It seemed pretty excruciating, and that was the first time that we ever considered the possibility that we might not open again. We prided ourselves on being scrappy and resourceful and survivors. But I think everyone here and across the country and the world realized for the first time that live music venues are fragile and need to be supported. That realization created change, though, which was good. We were pushed to forge friendships and alliances such as San Francisco Independent Venue Alliance and the San Francisco Venue Coalition, which were and still are working hard for positive change and adaptation. And adaptation is definitely needed because there's a lot of continuing hardships in this field. We have a lot of band cancellations, people just not showing up because they're still afraid, naturally, supply chain issues, rising costs, and in some ways, it's a rebirth. We've been open for 3 months, and it's been completely joyful, and our shows are wonderful. And we've had 7 sellouts in the past 2 weeks, so that's fantastic. Yeah. But other days, it kind of seems like we're never going to be out of the grip of COVID and its continuing challenges. So this initiative is incredibly exciting for me personally and for many venues. It allows a venue like ours that's very intimate to go to larger arenas and reach more people, reach the people that don't yet feel safe going inside to a live show. And without all the red tape and the prohibitive price tag that like putting on a live music event outside once entailed. And it allows us to bring our individual venue styles to different spaces across the city and show both visitors to the city and locals what we're all about. I think most importantly, this marks a historic time where our leaders are taking music seriously and making a choice to invest in it and to restore San Francisco to what we know it should be. There's no reason why cities like New Orleans, Nashville, and Austin get to be the only music cities. We can be a music city. We should be a music city. Music drives tourism, and music runs through our veins in San Francisco. It's the best city in the world. We need to show it off, and now we can. But I want to thank a few people. I mean, everyone here I want to thank. He didn't want to be thanked, but Ben Van Houten from the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. This guy actually listens to people in venues and and since before COVID, well before COVID, and makes real change happen. He didn't want to be thanked, but I had to. And City Attorney David Chiu, obviously, and Mayor London Breed, y'all are amazing. Thank you for stepping up to the plate for us, for freeing up these funds to invest in the city's venues, and we really look forward to partnering with you on this very innovative initiative, SF Live. It's the right move. It's very San Francisco, and we hope not only to survive, but to thrive in the near future. And that's it. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Casey Loudermilk, who has worked tirelessly for the music industry as well, and he's fabulous, and he's a spokesperson for the San Francisco Venue Alliance, as well as many other hats. Casey, take it away.
All right, thanks, folks. Thanks, Lynn, and thank you, City Attorney Chiu and Mayor Breed, for your support and engagement on this effort and throughout the pandemic. My name is Casey Loudermilk. I'm the Assistant General Manager at Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, as well as a co-founder of the San Francisco Venue Coalition. The SFVC was born of COVID-19, and during the pandemic provided an opportunity for over 40 independent venues in San Francisco to share ideas, commiserate together, and most importantly, to engage our elected officials. We are thrilled to see this effort and look forward to developing these plans along with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Live music in San Francisco are synonymous, as our city is the birthplace of the modern concert business. Venues throughout the city, just like Bottom of the Hill, are essential to our economic recovery and contribute to the strength of our neighborhoods and small businesses. They act as cultural beacons not only for those visiting, but also for everyone who lives in San Francisco. This effort from City Attorney Chiu and Mayor Breed reinforces these values and will jumpstart the city's recovery. Thank you. Mayor Breed.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you to everyone that's joining us here today. And I just want to take an opportunity to recognize our entertainment commissioners. I know Dory is here, Ben Blyman and Sharkey are all here. Can you guys do a little wave? These are some true nightlife and entertainment advocates in San Francisco, and it's great to have them as partners. And just to be clear, I'm not just doing this because I like to party. I'm doing I do like to party, but I also think that it is just really what's needed at a time like this. After everything we've been through, nothing has made me more happy than to be out and about watching live performances, plays, and seeing events. It's been extraordinary. Some of you also know that I used to run a nonprofit arts organization and the African American Art and Culture Complex, and just to see kids go from not even looking you in the eye to all of a sudden coming alive on stage, like, who is that kid? Like, who is that person? The arts and entertainment in San Francisco, it does so much. And I remember when I served as a member of the Board of Supervisors, and there were a number of new housing developments going up, and there was some threats of places like even Bottom of the Hill being closed because of complaints from neighbors who had just moved here in some of the new developments. And so I remember doing this legislation to say you have to basically sign and know where you're moving into, that a nightlife venue exists within a certain range, because I just, think that it's sad and unfortunate and unfair for a place like this that's been around for 30 years to be able to be sued or to be closed or to be, taken away from our city in that way. And so I think I want people to know in general, San Francisco is a major city. It's a great city. There's a lot of noise everywhere. And what we are going to continue to do is make sure that we protect our venues like Bottom of the Hill. They've been around for 30 years. It's a great venue. There's just something about being in an intimate space and listening to live music, and also walking into a place where people know who you are, where you feel like you're connected to the bartenders and the staff, and it just makes you feel good. And so part of what I wanted to do today to recognize Bottom of the Hill for their resiliency, for staying here, for working with us, for providing the input in the changes to policies and resources that we needed to provide as a city. I wanted to take this opportunity, Lynn, and recognize you and Bottom of the Hill on your 30th anniversary. And come on up. And just present you with a certificate of honor, because we know that Bottom of the Hill is now eligible to be a legacy business. So we need to be well on our way to protecting this institution in San Francisco, because we want to see the next Santanas and other incredible musicians continue to come out of here. This is a real jewel, your real jewel, for doing all the hard work to make it happen and continuing this great work. I know you started working in the kitchen at this location, and now you're in charge of it and running the show. It's pretty remarkable, and it is truly what makes San Francisco a wonderful place. So congratulations on 30 years.
Thank you.
And I noticed your lovely vintage attire as well. You could tell she's very artsy, right? I love that about San Francisco. All right, with that, without further ado, before I open it up to questions, Grants for the Art Director, Valerie Brown, is joining us, as well as our Assessor Recorder, Joaquin Torres. And so, and I've mentioned the other commissioners and others. And so, this is really a team effort. It's something that we all care about and something we're going to continue to push. And as you know, Grants for the Arts provides a lot of the funding for the festivals and the parades and the other activities that we do. And so we're going to beef it up, because we want our streets to be fun and buzzing with live music and entertainment as we open our doors to recover. So thank you all so much for joining us. And then I'll just open it up for a few quick questions.
Mayor Breed, in addition to the $2.5 million in state money, are there any rule changes coming with this initiative to make it easier to do these kind of live performances? And if I could just ask a second question too, there's a Board of Supervisors Committee meeting later this week to talk about that old McDonald's site on Stanion. I'm wondering if you could give your explanation of why your administration did not move forward with the drop.
Those are two different questions.
Right.
So what was the first one again?
The first one was specifically rule changes, and are there any rule changes for SF Live in addition to the millions in state dollars? Anything to change to make it
So
easier to do?
I think what we tried to do, specifically the JAMPS permit during the closure was to make it easier for not just nightlife venues to have entertainment, but also for some of our restaurants and other places that traditionally don't have that. We are definitely looking at ways to make it easier to get permits and to have, these things occur in San Francisco. I think we did that during the pandemic, and I'm hoping that it will continue. And clearly, Ben is doing his job. So, Ben, you get to stay at OEWD because, that's an indication that he is doing his job, the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. We are of the business of getting to yes, to support our businesses in San Francisco, to make sure they have the resources, the support they need, to cut the bureaucracy. So whatever we can do policy-wise or resource-wise, we're definitely going to do it. And so before I move on to your next question, which is a lot more complicated, I need to answer any other questions related to this.
I'm just a little confused of how this is actually going to work. Like, how many concerts are we talking about? Where are they going to be held? How is it going to work?
Yeah, so the way it's going to work is, there's a lot of also people who may not own brick and mortars, but like promoters who are going to use a lot of our plazas, like downtown, Holiday Plaza, UN Plaza, various plazas and parks and open space, Civic Center, all over San Francisco in various neighborhoods. In fact, I forget what this new location is called over here, but live music, entertainment, activities in parks and open space all over the San Francisco, because we also need to look at geographic equity. We can't just have it in the center of the city or the downtown area. We want to have it in neighborhoods, activities, and festivals and other events. And so the plan is to work with the entertainment community. Many have already expressed interest, but concern because of the cost related to it. So there's definitely a market to do this, and the goal is to make sure geographically it's spread throughout the city. And ultimately, we want to make sure that local artists are prioritized and paid for this program as well.
Loudermilk Civic is obviously an iconic venue of San Francisco. Why hold it here, aside from the 30th anniversary?
I don't know. I just showed up to where I was. I really don't. Does anyone know why we came here?
Do you love us?
I don't know. I don't know. Bill Graham is.
Why not here?
Yeah, why not here?
It's supposed to be a softball question.
I'm like, I don't know. Why did we hold it here?
I was looking for small places like this in the lifeblood of the community.
Okay. You can quote me on that.
Members of San Francisco's Black Committee are calling on San Francisco to basically donate the Fillmore Heritage Center to a nonprofit.
And I'm sorry, are we finished with the questions related to this nightlife venue related stuff? Okay.
Okay. So, members of San Francisco's Black Committee are calling on the city to donate the Fillmore Heritage Center to a nonprofit as a form of reparation. What do you think of that?
Well, we haven't made a decision about that yet. It's a lot more complicated because the property is under redevelopment disposition laws. So it's not as if it's as simple as donating it without making sure there's some financial, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but there's things that we are obligated to do as a city under redevelopment disposition law, which will require money. And so until we have a clear understanding of what that would entail and what it would mean, we don't know if that's going to be possible. So we're going to do everything we can to work with the community, which we have from the very beginning. But at this point, the state law will supersede what we're able to do here locally.
And where do you stand on the recall of District Attorney David?
I've not made a decision on that yet.
Just going back to the same topic.
I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to him. I
Sure,
apologize.
sorry. This hearing, I think your administration is going to be asked again, kind of the rationale for not moving forward with that drop-in.
Well, I think I made my answer clear when I talked at the Board of Supervisor meeting. A couple of things. The supervisor put money in the budget to help pay for a drop-in center. It went out to bid, and the only organization that bid on it basically asked for a lot more money in order to do it, and we were not willing to provide any additional resources to do it, nor were we willing to use the amount of money just to cover their staff expenses. So how is that going to work? I mean, part of it was money. The other challenge is, just the challenges of what has existed in the Haight-Ashbury community and needing to make sure that we have an organization or group or program that's going to help to eliminate some of the problems that have existed with this population for a very long time. Clearly, what's happening there now is not working, and I'm not 100% certain that adding this additional resource is going to make a difference.
Yeah, so if the Fillmore Heritage Center doesn't work out, you're not able to give it to the African American community, is there another place that maybe the city could provide?
I don't know yet, because again, we have an obligation under state redevelopment disposition law, and that's what's made it way more complicated. I mean, we would have done something already had we had the ability to do it, but there are certain obligations that we have to meet under state law. And so I'm not sure if the ability to provide it to the community is even an option without financial support being attached to it in some capacity. So I don't know. We are working on it, and it's more complicated than that. And as a member myself of the Black community, not everyone is in agreement. So at the end of the day, the work that we do with the city is going to be responsible and ultimately, hopefully, be of benefit to the community. And we're going to try to work on that, and we'll see what happens. I would like to see the venue open. I would like to see the venue become a huge success. I don't want to see the venue continue to be a financial drain on the city. And so that's one of the things that we need to work towards. But ultimately, a lot of the guiding principles for how we make the decisions about that venue have everything to do with state law. Thank you.